Okay. We're very lucky to have two such talented people here. I get hearing rave reviews from Michael's conducting of the concert last night. Yeah. And I keep telling Linda she needs like 3 backup dancers. Okay. Okay. Good morning. My name is Susan Miller, and I will be leading today's service. Reverend Matt Alspaugh will be presenting his message this morning from his home in North Carolina. Our opening words this morning are by Reverend Daniel Cantor. To love life is to notice the wonders that abound.
10 minutes late.
Too much festival last night. And to notice the wonders that abound is to be grounded here and now. Isn't there always like a rogue one, like later? Oh well. To be grounded here and now is the beginning of finding love for this life today. Let us ground ourselves in this instant in the worship of all things good and right. Our announcements were on a slideshow before the service and were also sent out by email yesterday with today's order of service. Now a special welcome to our visitors. If you are visiting us for the first time, or if you've been away for a long absence and you're reconnecting with us, we invite you to rise, say your name into the microphone, and tell us where you're from. People on Zoom use the Zoom raise hand feature, and we'll ask you to unmute. If you're in the room, just raise your hand and I'll bring you the mic.
It's on, right?
Yeah.
I'm Dave from the frozen tundra up in northern Wisconsin. So just here for today, because we fly to Chicago in about 3 days, and I was in Oaxaca a month before here, but I had to come here and see what's going on.
Welcome. Somebody over here.
Where in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Door County.
Did you want to?
I'm Cindy Ruptick. I'm a friend of Joan's, and I've been down here for a little over a week. I'm from Bainbridge Island, Washington, and we're going to Pátzcuaro to see the butterflies this week.
Hi, I'm Lynn Coretta, and I'm back and forth. And so it's good to be back here, and it's good to see everyone. And Joan bought me today, so I'm from Colorado, but I live here more than I live there.
Did you? Could you do me a favor and pass that down, please?
Buenos dias. I'm Joanne Babiak. I used to live here in Chapala, and now I live in Querétaro, Santiago de Querétaro. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I've been to this congregation before, and then also the one in San Miguel de Allende, where I also lived.
Hi, everybody. A lot of you I know. I see a lot of people I know. My name is Christy Caldwell, and I've been here since May of 2019. And I sing around a lot of different places, so you know me from there. And I moved here from Miami, and I absolutely love Mexico, and I'm very happy to see you all today.
Now let's switch to those on Zoom. Zoom host, do you have anybody new today?
I don't see anybody with their hand up.
Okay. Okay. Before we begin, just a brief note. We offer a wide variety of services on various topics, presented by members and outside guests, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alspaugh. We hope you will return to sample this variety of thought and belief. When do I say live from Fellowship Hall? It's the UU Sunday service. I'll say it now. Live from Fellowship Hall. It's a Sunday service. Okay. 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 Our chalice lighting words today are by Reverend Maureen Killeran. Love is the aspiration, the spirit that moves and inspires this faith we share. Is it too low? Is the mic, you say the mic's too low. How's the volume now? Better? Okay. Rightly understood, love can nurture our spirits and transform the world. May the flame of this chalice honor and embody the power and the blessing of the love we need, the love we give, the love we are challenged always to remember and to share. Now let us light our chalice with these words that we sing together.
We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world. 'Tis the light of the world, the light of the world.
There are many ways to be of service to the fellowship, but our time, treasure, and talents are all necessary components of a healthy fellowship. Heads are going to roll. Now is the time in our service when we ask you to share the gift of treasure through pledging and donations. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide during the announcements before the service every week. For the people here at the fellowship, we will pass a basket. If you are new here today, or if you're struggling to hold things together, please let the basket pass you by. Your presence is more than enough and is a gift to us. And while you are considering your gifts to the fellowship, please remember that each month, LCUUF donates a minimum of 5,000 pesos. In our Lakeside community, we share 1/2 of the offering collected at the fellowship each week with an organization that supports food efforts in this food-deprived area. For the month of February, we are supporting Food Bank Lakeside. Food Bank Lakeside works to relieve the chronic food poverty of our most disadvantaged neighbors, collaborating with donors, volunteers, businesses, and community organizations to ease suffering and offer the hope of a brighter future throughout the Lakeside community. Our opening hymn is Love Will Guide Us. Please rise as you are willing and able and join us in song. The lyrics will be on the screens.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we did this one, we sang this last week, and so I expect you to be in full voice and project your voice to the back, project it to Linda, okay, and sing with gusto.
Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. The sharing of joys, sorrows, and milestones is one way that we practice holding one another in beloved community. We speak what is in our hearts, sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives, because there is power in the sharing. We will start with the folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type joys or sorrows into the chat box to be read out loud by the Zoom host. First, let us recall the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others. Are there any joys that people would like to share here in the room? And I'll bring the mic. Okay, I'm going to start over here.
I'm Johannes Bjorno. I have a joy. I have seen there's new members in the different committees that have volunteered, and I think that is great. I admire their energy. It's not always easy to become into an existing group, but new members with new ideas, I hope we'll all support them.
She's going to mute me. I have had the most amazing week. I should swallow it. I should say I've had the most amazing week. I'm Joan. And I'm extraordinarily happy that the music festival is back, because music just fills this world in my heart. But mostly I'm excited because this woman right next to me is a dear friend for over 53 years, we figured out. And she took time from her life to come and just be with me for a whole week. And we've had music, and we've had wonderful friends here who have let us come into their life this week. I am exhausted. I think she is too. We can't stop. We're going to Pátzcuaro on Tuesday, but this week has been the best gift that anybody could ever give me. Thank you, Cindy.
This is in the same vein. I'm Carol from Montreal. Oh, sorry. My joy is in the same vein. I'm Carol from Montreal. We've always understood that music was at the heart of Unitarian services. And guess what? We have the director of the most marvelous orchestra that played last night. And it was a huge success. And I was so puffed. I know him. He's a UU. Yes.
Hi, everybody. I'm extremely joyful that 19 days ago I got a new hip. So I'm now, my second one. So I am now almost the bionic woman. And my partner took loving care of me for the first 2 weeks, and he had to go out of town. So I'm very, very thankful to my friend Susie. I called, we're Rotarians together, and said, Susie, I can't be alone. Doctor said I can't drive for 3 weeks. And she came and took care of me. So I'm very joyful for that. And also Janice, Janice isn't here? Oh, her 83rd birthday, my dear Janice. We all love Janice. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Devorah, and I am so blessed to live in a place that my friends from the cold north want to come visit. So I've had almost 2 weeks with my friend Mickey and Hyacinth, and my daughter's coming soon, and today there's another young couple with their toddler coming in. So I am just so grateful that I live in a place that people want to visit, and that I have the wherewithal to provide a glimpse into my life here. So lighting candle for friends.
I'm Kathy, and this is my husband, John, and we spent the summer here in Nahihiq, and we're back here for a week. We just closed on our house here, and so thank you. And as soon as we sell our house in Houston, we'll be back full-time. And I also want to give a shout-out to the orchestra last night. It was just incredible. Really nice job, Michael.
I just wanted to add on to Janice Kimball. Open house at the Weaving Studio from 1 to 3 this afternoon. And I know she'd love to have visitors celebrating her birthday and also the weaving. And I'm so glad Michael made it this morning.
It was a late night.
Are there any joys to be shared on Zoom?
Yes, there are. From Hannah Frederick. both a joy and a sorrow. She's sorry to miss the live sermon. She was in the hospital with a broken arm and now in an excellent new recovery home in San Antonio. It is as joyful as I can be. Thank you for your thoughts and wishes. And then from Kat Barnett, my joy is that even though I am missing the service because I have COVID, it's a very mild case, and I feel fine today after only really being sick for one day last Tuesday. And that's it for Zoom.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Now let us voice our sorrows. Whatever you or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. Are there any sorrows that people here in the room would like to share?
We are Ray and Cindy Kynard from Anchorage, and we are here and have been here before because of Jim Wanamaker, who lured us here. And he is still in an assisted living facility, which is a good thing, from his brain injury in late January. And our other sorrow is that we're leaving Saturday. But it's been a wonderful joy to be with you guys and to be at some of the music festival, and the Lakeside Little Theater last night was awesome.
I'd like to add a sorrow. We have dear friends in Virginia who are dealing with extremely elderly and frail parents, and one of whom has recently had a significant psychotic break. And it's a very difficult situation. So we're torn between trying not to do that to our kids and offering them all the support we can.
Thank you. I'm Tom, expressing concern for those in Ukraine still suffering from this unwarranted war, and also the earthquake victims in Syria and in Turkey.
Yeah, it's my understanding Jimmy Carter is in hospice care now, and what a great example of humanity.
Yes. Richard, are there any sorrows to be shared on Zoom?
I'm sorry, there are no more sorrows.
Oh, good. Linda tells me we're out of candles. And okay, and this candle from our care team represents the joys and sorrows we hold in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. We light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows and joys. Now, please, let us share a moment of silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning. Now we'll have a meditation guided by our Reverend Matt Alspa.
Good morning. This is a meditation known as metta, or loving kindness meditation. So I invite you to get comfortable wherever you are, and you might close your eyes, or if you'd rather not do that, just soften your gaze, maybe find something rather neutral to look at. And in this meditation, we start with ourselves. We start by thinking of ourselves. You might want to visualize yourself as in a mirror. And the meditation involves silently offering words of care. And we start with ourselves. So the words that we might offer, although you're certainly welcome to change them, there's no specific set of words, might be something like this. Saying this silently to yourself, repeating, may I be safe, happy, healthy, live with ease. May I be safe, happy, healthy. May I live with ease. And so let's just take a moment or so to silently say words like that in our mind, offering to ourselves this kind of little blessing. And certainly you can change the words if those don't fit for you. May I be safe, happy, healthy, live with ease. And if your mind gets distracted and goes off in a different direction, that's okay. Just bring it back. Doesn't matter if this happens 100 or 1,000 times. It's the returning that's good. May I be safe, happy, healthy, live with ease. Now bring to mind somebody else. This might be a friend, a family member, even a pet, somebody that you're close to. Maybe they're struggling, or maybe they're just your bestie. Bring them to mind and offer them the same blessing. May you be safe, happy, healthy, live with ease. Or whatever words you've decided to use. Offer those same words to this person. Now you may want to think about this as not so much a request or a petition, but it's an offering from ourselves. It's a lot like when we offer somebody happy birthday wishes. It originates from us, that they would have a good day, a good birthday, and a good year to come. So in the same way, we are offering these words to this other person or creature. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. May you be safe, happy, healthy, live with ease. And just repeat silently. Sending that kind of loving energy to this other person or creature. And now let us imagine a big gathering, lots of people, maybe people we know, but no, more than that, all people, strangers, people everywhere, all beings, all creatures, seen and unseen, nearby and far away. Imagine everyone and offer to all of them, all people, all creatures, offer them the same words of loving kindness. May you be safe, be happy, healthy, live with ease. Because after all of us want these same kind of things, perhaps in different specific forms, but in the generalities, yes, we all want to be safe and happy, healthy, to live lives of comfort without struggle. So again, just offer that offering to everyone everywhere. May you be safe, happy, healthy, live with ease. May you be safe, happy, healthy, live with ease. And let us end this loving kindness meditation and return to be together again.
Today's reading is from the Christian Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all that I have, and if I deliver my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. Knowledge is imperfect, and our prophecy is imperfect. But when the perfect comes, the imperfect will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall understand fully, even as I have been fully understood. So faith, hope, love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. The following is a brief excerpt from a video narrated by writer and speaker Jeremy Rifkin.
Let me take you back to the early 1990s.
Created by the Royal
Sleepy
Society
little
for the
laboratory
Arts.
in Parma, Italy, and scientists had a MRI brain scanning machine on a macaque monkey as the macaque monkey was trying to open up a nut. They wanted to see how the neurons would light up. So the monkey's trying to open up the nut, the neurons light up, and just by serendipity, and this is how science sometimes happens, a human being walked into the laboratory. I don't know if it was by mistake, and he was hungry. He saw the nuts and opened up one of the nuts and tried to crack it open. The macaque monkey was totally shocked because who was this invader in his laboratory? And he didn't move. He just gazed at this human trying to open up the nut, just like he had done a few seconds earlier. And then the scientist looked on the MRI brain scanner. The same exact neurons were lighting up when he observed the human being opening the nut as when the monkey opened the nut. And the scientists had not a clue as to what this was. They thought the MRI machine had broken. They then began to put MRI brain scanning machines on other primates, especially chimpanzees with our big neocortex. Then they went to humans. And what they found over and over again is something called mirror neurons. And that is that we are apparently soft-wired, some of the primates, all humans. We suspect elephants. We're not sure about dolphins and dogs. We've just begun. But all humans are soft-wired with mirror neurons so that if I'm observing you, your anger, your frustration, your sense of rejection, your joy, whatever it is, and I can feel what you're doing, the same neurons will light up in me as if I'm having that experience myself. Now, this isn't all that unusual. We know if a spider goes up someone's arm and I'm observing it going up your arm, I'm going to get a creepy feeling. We take this for granted, but we are actually soft-wired to actually experience another's plight as if we are experiencing ourselves. But mirror neurons are just the beginning of a whole range of research going on in neuropsychology and brain research and in child development that suggests that we are actually soft-wired, not for aggression and violence and self-interest and utilitarianism, that we are actually soft-wired for sociability, attachment, as John Bowlby might have said, affection, companionship.
Last week, Devorah mentioned the yellow shirts that Unitarian Universalists have worn at social justice events, witnesses, protests for the last decade or so. These yellow shirts have become synonymous with Unitarian Universalism in the United States of America. They are the public face of our religion. We are recognized in the States by these shirts. These yellow shirts were part of a social justice campaign that was launched in 2009. This campaign was organized around the power of love to stop oppression and violence. And initially, this campaign focused on marriage equality and other GLBTQ issues, but soon was expanded to include immigrant justice, climate efforts, and other justice actions. These yellow t-shirts and banners have perhaps been the most notable and powerful aspects of the campaign. They read, "Standing on the side of love," and more recently, just "Side with love." I've experienced the power of a bunch of folks showing up in these yellow t-shirts at public events. A minister friend described waiting to speak at some contentious public hearing, I don't know, city council or something like that in his town, when a dozen or so of his congregants showed up in their yellow t-shirts and took seats in the witness area. There was actually a sense of palpable relief among the other folks waiting to testify, one of whom turned to this minister and said, "Oh, good, the love people are here." We're the love people. This concept of love has become a central part of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. In fact, we've even picked it up here at LCUUF. Our t-shirts, okay, they're available in a variety of colors, not just yellow. They say on them, "Elige amor," which is Spanish for choose love. By the way, you can see Colleen Berry or Devorah Kelly if you want to buy a t-shirt. We choose love. That's what we're about. But what do we mean when we say the word love? What is love all about? I mean, so this is Valentine's Day week. And if you're from north of the border, you know that Valentine's Day focuses mostly on romantic love. That's the kind of love that we in the English-speaking world tend to think of when we hear the word love itself. Romantic love. And why not? With all the advertising and marketing using romance and erotica to get our attention. Other ideas about what love means get short shrift compared to romantic love in our culture. And yet we know that love is more complicated than just romantic love. We can trace ideas of love back to the ancient Greeks, who had plenty of names for the different kinds of loves. Certainly the Greeks had a word for romantic love. They called it eros, but there were other types too. Philia, meaning brotherly or sisterly love, describes a kind of sibling affection, a fondness, more like good friendship. And storge is a kind of similar kind of love, but more empathetic, the kind of love a parent might have for a child or a child for a parent. Now, here in Mexico, you may have noticed that people celebrate a more expansive Valentine's Day. It's not for nothing that they call it El Día del Amor y la Amistad, the day of love and friendship here. Valentine's Day is not just about eros, but about philia and storge also. Then there's also philatia, which means self-love. Now, this can be egotistic or narcissistic when taken to an extreme, but healthy self-love looks more like self-esteem or self-compassion. And then there's xenia, or hospitality, the kind of love we might have for guests or strangers. And finally, there's agape. In the Christian world, this is the love of humans for God and God's love of humans. In that faith tradition, agape is set apart from the other forms of love. As a minister, I'm occasionally called on to officiate weddings and memorial services. Of these, I actually prefer memorial services. Memorial services make a space for us to reflect on the arc of a person's life, to recall who they were and what they were about. It's a chance to go deeper with family and friends as part of the preparation. But the wedding industry, on the other hand, has become all about the show. The operative phrase in that industry is "my perfect day." Recently, there was something going around on the internet about a bride demanding that everyone, not just the bridesmaids, but everyone attending her wedding must wear yellow. And then expecting to have a reception dinner where all of these people would remain silent. The bride wrote, "I feel I should have the wedding I want so that the start of our life together would be perfect." Fortunately, I've never had to deal with officiating such a bizarre wedding. Thankfully, because I don't look good in a yellow suit. But still, I cringe at certain requests made by brides and grooms to me, even if I ultimately accede to them. Take, for example, wedding readings. One popular reading is 1 Corinthians 13 in the Christian Bible, usually excerpted for a wedding. We heard the whole reading earlier. And it ends this way. So faith, hope, love, abide. These three, but the greatest of these is love. Sounds like a good wedding reading, perhaps. But the thing about this text is it isn't about romantic love at all. Even though it was not written for weddings, it is read at a lot of them. It was actually written by Paul of Tarsus. Yeah, that Paul, who was perhaps the most prolific writer in the New Testament. More than half of the books of the New Testament are attributed to Paul. Now, Paul's writing is complicated, and scholars now believe that many of those books are inauthentic. They were not written by Paul, but by later Paul impersonators. Paul was, in essence, Christianity's first church planter. He was working just in the first few decades after Jesus' death. He traveled around the Roman Empire founding Christian churches. And when these churches had problems, they'd write to him for help, and he'd write back. This particular text was a letter from Paul to his church in Corinth in Greece. Now, this church was a hot mess with lots of conflict and disagreement, lots of arguments over theology, and of course, over who is in charge. Paul was trying to resolve things from a distance. And so he writes to them, telling them to love each other. Actually, that's not right at all. He tells them that God loves them and that they should love God. He tells them about agape love. I reviewed the text in the Greek, and he only uses the word agape, that word for love between God and humans. Now, at this point, I want to point out a problematic thing. Paul is focused on this agape love of God. And whether or not you believe in God, the point is that this love is kind of individualistic. It's your own private relationship with God. I wonder if Paul might have done better to talk with his congregation also of brotherly love, philia, especially given that the members of this church in Corinth weren't being very brotherly or sisterly. I would have liked to have seen Paul promoting a broader kind of love, a love that reaches out beyond God to those around us, to everyone and everything, the whole world, even the universe. So I mentioned a couple Sundays ago that the Unitarian Universalist Association in the USA has embarked on a plan to rewrite the 7 principles and the purposes that form the foundation of our faith. I mentioned that while we here at LCUUF are not actually part of the UUA, this is an important activity that we might want to pay attention to. So this rewrite focuses on 7 values, of which the central value is love, that we are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through this spiritual discipline of love. Now, if you had asked the average UU maybe a decade or 2 ago about what is central to our faith, I doubt that love would have even made the cut. Things like religious freedom, individual worth, peace, reason, maybe interdependence, sure. But I do not remember love being called out as a central idea to our faith. And yet now many people put it right at the center. What changed? I think we can credit the Standing on the Side of Love campaign that we just talked about for some of this change. We came to focus on love because love arose as an important part of our social justice work. I think that what happened is that we realized that, true, much of our social justice work can look loud and confrontational. I mean, think about protests and marches, lobbying, where we're fighting injustice and countering oppression. But underneath all that noise and force has to be something deeper, something that we came to understand and name as love. We do this work out of a love for everyone, especially the marginalized ones and the rejected ones. Certainly that's true for me. I do not really enjoy going to rallies or protests. I don't savor confrontation. But I try to remember that what drives this work is a larger thing, and that is love. Love in all its aspects and forms. I actually think aspects of love may be soft-wired into us as mammals, just as the video suggested. It's an evolutionary development in mammals. Now, this is contrary, of course, to many older views of the natural world as a place of competition, of nature red in tooth and claw, of creatures and their selfish genes duking it out in a violent contest of evolution. Interestingly, the phrase red in tooth and claw was used by Alfred Lord Tennyson in his poem In Memoriam, A.H.H. He wrote this epic poem over the years from 1833 to 1850, and it is almost 3,000 lines long. In this epic poem, Tennyson describes humankind as those who trusted God was love indeed, and love creation's final law. Though nature red in tooth and claw, with ravine shrieked against this creed. In my mind, Tennyson embodies that Victorian sense of duality, that separation of the godly, civilized, refined Western world from the inferior, animalistic, violent other. And this Victorian worldview, expressed in literature, would soon be supported by the science of the time. In 1859, Charles Darwin published his idea of evolution by natural selection. In this view, every creature competed in a struggle for existence. The idea was later broadened into social Darwinism, extending the survival of the fittest to human competition, colonialism, and capitalism. Taken to the extreme, some have even held that God loved most those who competed best and won and were prosperous. This is the basis for the prosperity gospel that originated in the United States of America, but which has since been exported to much of the world. In recent years, we've come to realize that the natural world is not solely based on competition, red and tooth and claw. Evolution also favors those creatures who find ways to cooperate and help one another. I've spoken before about the symbiotic relationship between trees and fungi that knit entire forests together into cooperative communities of organic beings. And just this week, I read a brief analysis in Science News that suggested that mammals that live in groups live nearly twice as long on average as those that live solo or in pairs. In some cases, the difference is extreme. Naked mole rats, which live in huge, complex underground colonies, live as long as 30 years, while golden hamsters, similar-sized creatures, which live solitary lives, check out after only 4 years. So perhaps there's a sense of cooperation, maybe even love, that underlies the natural world we live in. Maybe those mirror neurons enable us to live together as social beings, giving us the capability to love one another. Maybe love is, in fact, part of the interconnected web of existence. Maybe not all the time, or not in all parts, for certainly competition exists. But maybe underlying all that is a world of love. Now, our meditation today was based on metta, or loving kindness, a practice that was originally developed by the Buddha, who based it on older Hindu practices. In the West, one of my teachers, Sharon Salzberg, is credited with popularizing loving kindness meditation. And as we saw in the meditation, the practice typically begins with compassion for oneself. Remember that Greek philatia, or self-love. We who practice note that the one that's hardest to love is often ourselves. So the practice begins with compassion for ourselves. We start by offering love first to ourselves, so that we might then be able to offer love to others. And the practice continues with loving kindness directed towards other individuals, people around us. Depending on the time you have, we might offer loving kindness to various people easy to love, people close to us, then to strangers perhaps, and then maybe to people who are downright difficult to love. And the practice typically ends with directing loving kindness towards everyone, everywhere, all beings, everywhere. We remind ourselves that all beings everywhere have those same desires that we have for ourselves. Desires for things like happiness and health, safety and ease of living. This love is kind of a filial love, a love of brothers and sisters, as if all beings are our siblings. And depending on our perspective, it could also be agape love, kind of a love for the divine relationship that is the interconnected web of existence that we belong to. Salzberg points out that love is not a feeling, it's an ability. It is something within us that we can call up, cultivate. It is part of our nature. It's something that we can all access. It is universal. But because love is an ability, it requires practice. Hence, we are invited to consider practicing something like loving kindness meditation. Now, not all of us are inclined to meditate, and of those who do, not all of us are drawn to loving kindness practice. But there are other ways to practice this ability to love. For many of us, we just live out our love just by showing up. We show up to care for one another, our friends, our neighbors, over and over again. We see this in our congregation here. We show up to love by standing witness against injustice and by contributing to social justice work to make this a better world. We are the love people. May we continue to practice this ability to love in all its forms, loving each other, everyone, everywhere, the whole world and beyond, to include the whole universe. May our love for all of this continue to grow. Blessed be.
Our closing hymn is Standing on the Side of Love. Please rise and belt it out as you are able.
And this time, ladies and gentlemen, I pre-recorded the piano track so that I could conduct you and make sure that you are all opening your mouths. So Linda is going to sing the verses and we will all sing the choruses. So watch me, I'll bring you in.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
I've adapted these closing words from words by Jim Wickman. May our faith sustain us, our hope inspire us, and our love surround us as we go our separate ways, knowing that we will gather again in this beloved community, the community of the love people.
Let us extinguish our chalices with these words, which we read together. I'll read them. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the postlude today is a wonderful song by the great Irish singer-songwriter Van Morrison. Oh God, we've got some Van Morrison songs here, and this is very, very appropriate to the theme of today's presentation. Have I told you lately that I love you?
At the end of the day